So, hello everybody. My name is Rudy Kuhn. I'm Vice President with Celonis, and I look after strategic engagements, after innovations on a global scale. And it's my great pleasure to be with you today. Okay, so, process mining is a very unique technology. And to better explain it, we sometimes compare it to process X-ray. Basically, you run a process, you don't know what's going on because the process is digital, everything is in the data, everything is in your systems. So what we do, we extract these informations from any type of IT system, can be ERP systems, can be workflow, can be CRM, whatever, you name it, or manufacturing, warehouse management systems. And solely based on the data, we reconstruct the real processes. And why is this important? It's not only important so you understand what's really happening, but nowadays it's very important for AI systems to understand the processes and to build the right context and to understand, what's really going on and how can AI actually help. So what are people very surprised? Typically, if you run a process, you typically design your perfect process. We call it the happy path, the process as you want it to be. And of course, we all know that sometimes processes have exceptions. And people think about like 10, 20, or if it's really bad, maybe about 100 exceptions. But if you look into the reality, you will realize that processes sometimes have thousands, literally thousands of different variations. And of course, not every variation is a good one. Not every variation is efficient. Not every variation is free of risk. So if you want to improve your processes and have an AI that really understands and runs your business and helps you to make decisions, you need to know the reality. You need to know your processes, and process mining, process intelligence is the technology to make this happen. I have a history in process automation, and in automation, you typically focus on the repetitive and the rule-based tasks. But if you really think about it, many decisions are also rule-based and repetitive. So if you train AI, again, with the right data and AI understands the context, AI can help you to make these decisions. But of course, not every decision can or should be made by AI. There are exceptions. There are, cases where you need the judgment of a human person. And this is where, now humans come into the picture. Let me give you one example from one of our customers in Spain, a company called Constantino. So they sell construction products. And unfortunately, not all customers always pay all invoices before they order new products. And sometimes there are too many outstanding invoices. And the ERP system, based on rules, creates a credit block. So like, okay, this order cannot be processed because money needs to be paid first. And nobody likes it. The customer wants the product. The company wants to sell. The salespeople, they want their commission. So it's a lose-lose-lose situation. But of course, you have to manage the risk. And so in the past, there was a team of finance people, actually a large team. So they had like hundreds of these credit blocks every single day. And they looked into the payment history, or they already knew the customer. They knew, okay, they pay late, but they pay. Oh, and this customer, we had some issues in the past, so maybe we should not delete this credit block. But of course, it was a lot of effort. And so what we did, we trained an AI system on the past data. So now AI makes the call. AI will now suggest to the people, should this credit block be deleted or not, based on the past, based on the history, everything, the experience. And what we witnessed that after some time, people like 99% of the time follow the recommendation of AI. So you flip the switch, and whenever AI suggests this credit block can be deleted because, money will come in maybe a bit later, but this customer always pays, and it's a long-term customer, then the credit block is deleted automatically. No more humans in the loop. But if AI suggests, okay, this credit block, better not delete it, then they pick up the phone, they call the customer, they call sales, they explain the situation and make the customer pay. And the great thing is, now this is an exception, but now they have time to look into this because the standard cases, the routine cases are handled by AI. So that's, I think, a very, very nice example. Routine tasks, rule-based, repetitive, AI. Exceptions, humans. Yeah, why does AI need context, and why is the Celonis Context Model really a game changer? Recently I gave an interview and I called it the ice cream question. So if you ask your kids, everybody wants ice cream. Should we buy more ice cream? Yes, of course. I mean, the answer is obvious, right? And it's the same with AI. If you ask AI an obvious question or even a good question, but it does not have the right context, it will answer as a generalist. So let's say you ask, okay, we see increased demand for a product. Should we reorder? I mean, the answer is obvious. Yes, of course, you should reorder. But you don't need to answer like this. You need a specialist to answer your question. So if you ask AI, a trained AI with the right context, the same question like, we see increase in demand for this product. What should we do? Then AI maybe respond like, okay, we see a 75% increase for the product SKU 102 in Europe, whatever SKU 102 might be. The replenishment time in our ERP system says 10 days, but 90% of the time in the past, we saw 20 days when we ordered by train. So if this is urgent, I recommend air freight. And this is a response you can really act on. This is an answer you can really use for your business, and it really helps you. Otherwise, it's just, yes, of course, you should reorder, go forward. And of course, for this, you need the right context. You need context from the past. You need to understand the patterns from the past. You need to understand the replenishment time. You need to understand what is in the system. So you need like all these informations. You need a specialist who really understands the situation and maybe also the urgency and maybe even, the weather patterns. Let's say if it's a logistic process and we know there's a storm coming or a typhoon in Asia or whatever, then you maybe you need to reroute your products. Maybe you ship them from the US instead of from Asia. So you need all this information to make the right call and to make the right judgment to really solve the problem. And that's why context is key. Front end and back end. I believe that we really need to connect these two. Otherwise, in the front end, you make a promise to a customer like, okay, whatever you order, I will deliver next Monday. And maybe that's like, the time until next Monday is what you have as a static data in your system. And you even see the stock in the warehouse. So you are very confident that you will be able to deliver on Monday. But with the right context, you might understand that maybe there is some issues in your logistics processes, or even the weather I just mentioned, that there's a storm coming. So even if you have the products, if you have the capacity to deliver everything, the weather will prevent it. And it's great if you already have this data in your front-end system. So the moment the customer asks for a delivery date, you can already take all the context, all this information that are available in the back-end systems into account, and you give a promise you are actually able to keep. That's, why connecting front-end and back-end systems, especially context, is actually crucial in order to deliver the promise and the real value to customers. Yeah, let's talk about autonomous enterprises and autonomous processes. That's in my humble opinion, that's a difficult topic because, yes, technically we are on the way to enable autonomous enterprises, autonomous processes. I personally believe, even if technically it's possible, we shouldn't do it because I see there's like a responsibility of enterprises for the society, for the employees, for the markets. And if everything runs autonomously, what should people do? How do people make money? And who should, at the end have the money to buy the products an autonomous enterprise is producing? But that's a way bigger question, or probably something for a more philosophical or for political discussion in the future. But I think we are not there yet because, we see so many exceptions. We see so many variations. We see the guardrails humans need to define. And probably AI in the foreseeing future will not be able to define the strategy, will not be able to, create new business ideas. I think the human creativity is something that still makes a big difference for organizations. And especially when we talk about exceptions or when humans need to talk to humans, I don't see, two agents arguing about outstanding invoices. Probably not anytime soon. So autonomous processes, yes. Autonomous operations, it's even a bit smaller. You can define autonomous operations as small or as big as you like. But I don't think that we will see any autonomous enterprises, like end to end in the near future. But definitely, as we said, autonomous operations for repetitive or for rule-based tasks and decisions, because nobody wants to work like a robot. But every time there's interaction with humans required, human judgment, humans in the loop, exception handling, I think that's something that is and also in the future should be reserved for humans. You mentioned that, 47 of suppliers consider themselves largely automated, and at the same time, 60% are still run more than a quarter of their processes by hand. But the question is, what is a process? The definition of a process is very simple. It's just a sequence of activities you perform in parallel to accomplish something. So when we as Celonis talk about processes, we typically talk, like end to end, order to cash, purchase to pay, hire to retire. When automation companies talk about processes, sometimes for them it's just copying data from an Excel sheet into an SAP form. And that's, for me, of course, it's a sequence of activities, but I wouldn't call this a process. I would call this a task. And a process is the sequence of all these tasks. So even if you say, okay, we are largely automated because we have a lot of task automation in our processes, you still are connecting all these tasks maybe manually. So you still have someone who is, working as the human connector between two automated tasks. And this is especially where process orchestration comes into the picture, because if you really want to increase the efficiency of end-to-end processes, you cannot rely or focus on task automation only. You need to orchestrate all the different players. I always have this picture of a conductor in front of an orchestra. So you have all these different players, the percussion and the strings and the drums, everything. But without the conductor, it's more like the tuning at the beginning of an orchestra. It's musical noise, but it's not the symphony you are expecting when you are sitting in the audience. And with process orchestration, it's the same. We have RPA bots, we have AI agents, we have humans, we have APIs, we have systems. And so what we need to do is to orchestrate all of them, close the gaps, make sure that the task, or let's say the object, whatever it is, it might be a customer order or a purchase order, goes from one player to the other, and we increase the efficiency end to end. So that's the problem. When people talk about automation, you should always ask, okay, what is a process for you? Is it a task, or are we talking about the big end-to-end process? When we talk about these numbers, 47 versus 60%, 47 think they do a lot of automation, and they say 60% of our processes are still manual. I think it's really the determination, how you define the process, what you think a process really is. So you can have a lot of automation, task automation, and still run your processes manually, because humans are connecting the automated tasks in between. So I think it's a matter of definition. If you ask this question, you probably get more reliable statistics. I'm often asked by our customers, so where should we start with our initiative, with our transformation in changing and improving our business processes? And it's almost like a hierarchy. You need to ask yourself, what's the purpose of my organization? And how do we define value for us? So because value, let's say for an e-commerce company, clearly is probably, is revenue and is profit. Value for an hospital, for public sector, or even for the military is probably defined slightly different than in cash. But no matter what your definition of value is, you always need to combine three factors. You need insights. So you need first to understand, how your business is running. How are your processes run? How is your business today? What happened in the past? You need to make some predictions, what will happen in the future, because if you understand the patterns of the past, you can predict the future. Then based on these insights, you need to make decisions. It's very interesting if you think about it, how many facts humans can process when they make decisions. I was very surprised because the number is way lower than I thought. The number is actually 7 plus minus 2. And I always, say that probably women are closer to 9, men are closer to 5, and that's on a good day. So that's the maximum number of facts we can, consciously process when we make a decision. But AI, of course, can process way more facts, and it can help us to make the right decision, or make the decision on its own, like we discussed before. And then we need actions. And actions, when we talk about IT, we talk about automation, we talk about orchestration, like we just did. And this is how you create value. And I even put this as a formula. I say value equal insights times decisions times actions. And I know it's a little bit theoretical, but for me, it's a multiplication, because if one of these factors would be zero, the outcome is zero. And I've seen so many transformation projects, really failing because people forgot about one of these factors. And yeah, and it's about developing the right capabilities. And again, here, I think process intelligence, Celonis Context Model, AI systems, Celonis process orchestration in combination with the Emporix platform can really help us to make this formula happen for the customers. And basically, that's a funny thing. Recently, I was in Amsterdam and I wrote this on a whiteboard. It was V equal I times D time A. And someone asked me, hey, Rudy, by the way, do you know what VIDA means in Spanish? And I don't speak Spanish. I said, hey, sorry, no idea. And she said, it means life. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. What a nice coincidence, because this formula actually ensures that companies will not only survive, but they will thrive if they do this correctly. And if they don't, they risk extinction. So this formula, value equal insights times decisions times action. If you follow this, if you do it right, you will survive. And if you do it very good, you will thrive over your competitors. So I think that's a really nice way to think about how to use technology, how to use AI, how to use automation orchestration all together to create value at the end.